Thank you, Lord Joy. Good evening and welcome to our Coptic Center Sunday evening experience as we gather in light and in love and in years of universal truth on this ongoing quest towards self-mastery. And looking forward to John Modena. He's been through the World Service Order leadership training. He's been through, I believe, self-mastery training as well as self-discovery. And he has insights on a lot of different metaphysical and other topics too. His workshop, Writers of the Seven Lights workshop, he can hopefully shed a little more light on that too, more than I do on the opening announcements on these Sunday nights. But John Modena, throughout over 30 years of traveling, John has mentored and been mentoring by an Essene rabbi. A Hasidic rabbi has received his teachings and insights from gifted savants or servants in several different states and has completed numerous courses in esoteric sciences and Christian pastoral certificates. In addition to having his own library on such topics, he has found there is a shortcut to the opening of the inner kingdom, and that's part of the Zohar that he has touched on in the previous Sunday evening experience, his workshop, and he'll be touching on some other great topics tonight. The Mystery Essene Mentor is tonight's presentation.
Thank you, and thank you, Laura Joy. You're always a hard act to follow. You know, I haven't revealed how I made it out to Southern California from Michigan to study under an Essene rabbi, but what had occurred was I was between colleges building homes with a construction crew up in Ludington, Michigan, and I had made contact with Rabbi Emanuel Bronner. And he actually, after 7 or 8 phone calls, invited me to the estate, in Escondido. Well, being as I was working with a construction crew, I didn't have a lot of money. And I said to myself, well, I need to get out there because I really feel that this rabbi has some answers for me. So in actuality, I threw a backpack on my shoulders and I hitchhiked from Michigan to California. I met a wonderful guy in Salt Lake City who wanted to hear a little bit more of my quest. And I told him, and believe it or not, he gave me enough money for a bus ticket. And I made it from Salt Lake City to San Francisco. And then from there, I hitchhiked on down to Escondido. When I did get to Escondido, after a while, I was welcomed into the Bronner estate. And I ended up living in the apartment next door, to Dr. Bronner, the master soap chemist who makes Bronner's soaps, who happened to be at the time a multimillionaire. So life on the estate was quite different from working construction in Ludington, Michigan. So we rubbed shoulders with Hollywood actors and actresses. We had several different millionaires come by. I helped build an addition onto the back of the estate. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, but, deeply moved by growing up in Germany, where both of his parents were taken captive by Hitler's regime and they passed away in one of Hitler's camps. Anyways, what I learned from the man was absolutely profound. And I've seemed to have, since that time, being around 19, 20 years old, never separated from this connection with the Essenes. The Essenes are not your average Jews. In actuality, they really can't be called Jews. They could be called Israelites. But they're a special select group of Israelites who are deep into spiritual disciplines. So I'm going to share a little bit on what I have uncovered recently. And I'm going to have to say that, it comes from the principle, ask and ye shall receive, knock and the door shall be open, seek and ye shall find. And what I have found is that the Coptic Center has a very clear connection to the Essene order. So I'm going to go into a little bit of that now. We're going to talk about one of the very high teachers that is in scriptures, and his identification label is Melchizedek. We're going to go into Genesis chapter 14, where we begin to understand who this person is. When Abraham heard that his nephew, at this time his nephew was Lot, had been taken captive, he mobilized 318 trained men who had been born in his household, and he pursued the invaders as far as Dan. Then during the night, Abraham divided his forces against them and defeated them. He chased them as far as north of Damascus. He retrieved all the stolen property. He also brought back his nephew Lot and his possessions, as well as the women and the rest of the people. After Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet Abram. He was Abram before he became Abraham, in the valley of Shaveh, known as the King's Valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of the Most High God. In Hebrew, that's El Elyon. He blessed Abraham, saying, "Blessed be Abram by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. Worthy of praise is the Most High God, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the possessions for yourself." But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, I raise my hand to the Lord, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and vow that I will take nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or a strap of a sandal. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into who Melchizedek was and why he is so incredibly important. Hebrews chapter 5 in the New Testament. So also Christ did not glorify himself in becoming high priest, but the one who glorified him was God, who said to him, "You are my son, today I have fathered you." As also in another place God says, "You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek." Now this is a unique term, order. Is it a temple order? Is it an Essene order? Is it an Israelite order? Is it an order from Mount Carmel? Is it an order from the Coptic Center in Cairo, Egypt? What type of order is it? Is it an order a select group of people? Is an order a community? This is a term that is used for individuals who are acting to bring forward high teachings from heaven. Now, Hebrews chapter 7 goes on, and it says, "Now this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, met Abraham as he was returning from defeating the kings and blessed him. To him also Abraham apportioned a tithe of everything. His name first means King of Righteousness, then King of Salem, that is, King of Peace. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, he has neither beginning of days nor end of life, but is like the Son of God, and he remains a priest for all time." But see how great he must be if Abraham, the patriarch, gave him a tithe of his plunder. And those of the sons of Levi who received the priestly office have authorization according to the law to collect the tithe from the people, that is, from their fellow countrymen, although they too are descendants of Abraham. But Melchizedek, who does not share their ancestry, collected a tithe from Abraham and blessed the one who possessed the promise. Now, he's not just in the book of Genesis or in Hebrews, he's also in Psalms at 110, verse 4. "The Lord makes this promise on oath and will not revoke it. You are an eternal priest after the pattern of Melchizedek." This would be a forward prophecy of Jesus Christ. So one of the studies was from an author who went deep into Melchizedek and who he was, and he thought perhaps that Melchizedek was a theophany of the Christ. And so he says, "I know that there are some who feel strongly that Melchizedek is a theophany, an Old Testament appearance of the second person of the Trinity, Christ in the Old Testament. And the first thing we should note is that there is no clear indication of a theophany, as there appears to be in Judges chapter 13, where the angel of the Lord appears to Manoah and his wife, foretelling of the birth of a son. David does write that the Messiah, like Melchizedek, will be a priest forever. But the way the author of Hebrews validates from Genesis 14 will give us pause for thought as to whether Melchizedek was divine. I would have to conclude that thinking of Melchizedek as a theophany is probably speculative. Next, we are told that Melchizedek was the king of Salem, meaning the king of peace. Just as Abram's victory over Chedorlaomer brought peace to the land, so the Messiah's victory over his enemies will bring peace, as implied in Psalm 110. But we should also recognize that Messiah is identified as Prince of Peace. Quote, "For a child has been born to us, a son has been given to us. His shoulders responsibility and is called Extraordinary Strategist, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." That's from Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. Well, things get a little more esoteric when we try to look into who this Melchizedek is, that he is without father, without mother, without genealogy, has neither beginning of days nor end of life, but is like the Son of God, and remains a priest for all time. So I had gone through some of my other books, and I began to receive my own confirmations and my own reasoning, and I think the puzzle pieces started coming together. This is from the book of Urantia, known as the Book of Earth, and it has a very interesting chapter on the Melchizedek. This is what it says on page 1014. The Melchizedeks are widely known as emergency sons, for they engage in an amazing range of activities on the worlds of a local universe. When any extraordinary problem arises, or when something unusual is to be attempted, it is quite often a Melchizedek who accepts the assignment. So we're not talking about just one man here, or one angel, or one super being. We're talking about an order of Melchizedek. Now let's take a look at how many there are. This ability of the Melchizedek sons to function in emergencies and on widely divergent levels of the universe, even on the physical level of personality manifestation, is peculiar to their order. Only the life carriers share to any degree this metamorphic range of personality function. The universe sonship has been exceedingly active on Earth. A core of 12 served in conjunction with the life carrier. Well, how many apostles did Christ have? 12. A later core of 12 became receivers for your world shortly after the Caligastia succession and continued in authority until the time of Adam and Eve. These 12 Melchizedeks returned to earth upon the default of Adam and Eve, and they continued thereafter as planetary receivers on down to the day when Jesus of Nazareth, as the Son of Man, became their planetary prince. It was no consequence that, having been thrown so completely into their own resources, that the leader of the Melchizedek order, known as Macaventa, one of the 12 planetary receivers, volunteered to do that which has been done only 6 times in the history of Earth. To personalize on Earth as a temporary man of the realm, to bestow himself as an emergency son of world ministry. Permission for this adventure by the Salem authorities and the actual incarnation of Macaventa Melchizedek was consummated near what was to become the city of Salem in Palestine. The entire transaction of the materialization of this Melchizedek son was completed by the planetary receivers with the cooperation of the life carriers, certain of the master physical controllers, and other celestial personalities resident on Earth. As Macaventa Melchizedek made his appearance, then a few things followed that were very significant in the development of the Essene order. Within a few years of him coming to this planet, saying, "I am Melchizedek, priest of El Elyon, the Most High, the one and only God," a few disciples had gathered around themselves, some additional disciples and believers who formed the nucleus of a later community in Salem. He was soon known throughout Palestine as the priest of the Most High and as the sage of Salem. Among some of the just so happened to be the site which, after the disappearance of Melchizedek, became the city of Jabus, subsequently being called Jerusalem. Though Macaventa Melchizedek lived after the manner of the men of the realm, he never married, nor could he have left offspring on earth. His physical body, while resembling that of the human male, was in reality on the order of those especially constructed bodies used by the 100 materialized members of Prince Caligastia's staff, except that it did not carry the life plasm of any human race. Nor was there available on earth, Urantia, the tree of life. This is something that I touch on at the beginning of the Holy Grail, the Zohar, that there are really only two parallel realities. One is the reality of the tree of life. The other is the tree of knowledge and good and evil reality. When the dimensions were split after the fall of Adam and Eve, it's very difficult, but it is accessible, but it's difficult to enter the tree of life reality. However, most of us are in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil reality, which has done nothing but produce chaos. And that happens to be the dark side agenda, is to produce chaos. So we see that heaven has always had, an introduction of their teachers into our world since the beginning of the fall, and even before the fall of Adam and Eve, whereby the Almighty is reaching out to restore divine order. So when we go back to who the leaders are in this particular order and why these particular orders have high teachers that pay us visits, we can very clearly see that they were preparing the way for the Christ. As I was reading some of this information, I went back to one of my books on Edgar Casey, and fortunately, growing up in my home under my mother who had multiple gifts, I was introduced to some of the teachings of Edgar Casey in his book called, The River of Knowledge. And Edgar Casey, of course, gave 14,000 readings, and I think he only had 0.004% error. It's a pretty tough act to follow. So, Edgar Casey has some things to say, about the Essenes, and I'm going to get into that. And that's from this book, Edgar Casey on the Mysterious Essenes. And this was written by John Van Alken and Reuben Miller, a PhD. So let's see if I can get to that page here and share what he says about the Essenes. And this is what he says at page 59. What he does, Edgar Casey, is he goes into somewhat of a trance state, and in a trance state, he accesses the river of knowledge. And as someone is asking him questions in this trance state, then his answers are recorded. And of course, they're down, they're down in Virginia at the Center, Research for Enlightenment. And just to access some of these answers that he's given is so profound. It seems hard to even put them into words. But he was asked, how did Mary and Joseph first come in contact with the Essenes? And what was the preparation for the coming of Jesus? They then asked, please describe the process of selection and training of the holy women, and please describe the fall in the Garden of Eden. Casey himself explained that the Essenes were gathering select girls in their temple at Mount Carmel and putting them through training and tests to determine which of them might actually conceive Mary's mother had come to the temple pregnant, yet she had not had sex with a man. They took Anna in, and when she gave birth to a girl, there was a discussion that ended in a decision to keep the girl, since she might be, as some thought the Messiah would be, the immaculately conceived feminine Messiah who would eventually conceive through the Holy Spirit the masculine Messiah. When there were activities in which there were to be the cleansing, through which bodies were to become channels for the new race, or the new preparation, these then were restricted, of course, to certain associations, developments in associations, activities, and the like. We are speaking here of the 12 women. And all of the women from the very beginning who were dedicated as channels for the new race. You see, he asks. Hence, the group we refer to here as the Essenes, which was the outgrowth of the periods of preparations from the teachings by Melchizedek, as propagated later by the prophet Elijah and the prophet Elisha and the prophet Samuel. These were set aside for preserving themselves in direct line of choice for the offering of themselves as channels through which there might come the new or the divine origin. Do you see? Question mark. So we have a select order. And Edgar Casey does explain that the school of the prophets was a select order that came before the White Brotherhood, and that the White Brotherhood was a select order, and that later this select order became known as the Essenes. So just to have an opportunity to read the teachings of the White Brotherhood, or the schools of the prophets, or the teachings of the Essenes, has the ability to give you a direct connection to the teachings of Melchizedek. And now we know that Melchizedek was not human. Melchizedek came from a higher realm. Now, I decided that I would go to the Holy Grail, and I would try to find something on Melchizedek. And lo and behold, he's in the Zohar, the Holy Grail, in volume 3. So I want to read a little bit of that. Baruch Shem Kavod Malkuto L'Olam Vayed. Blessed be the name of his glorious majesty. Abraham, king of David, and the other great spiritual giants of history devoted their lives to easing the pain of the Shekinah. They say in Hebrew, Shekinah. The collective universal soul that protects and assists us in the physical world. The Shekinah, possessing its own consciousness, experiences the collective pain of humanity when negativity and suffering abound in the world. Similarly, our consciousness and intent to ease the pain of the Shekinah serves spiritual work cannot be ego-based. We must learn to feel the pain of others and dedicate ourselves to ending their suffering as well as our own. Many spiritual lessons that radiate throughout these verses. We gain awareness of the global purpose of our existence, which is to diminish and remove our intemperate character traits that separate us from the light of the Creator. A recognition of the impact that our actions have on both on ourselves and on all mankind is instilled within our consciousness. And the Holy Grail said from the book of Genesis, as it explains it in depth, this is the oral Torah that joins the written Torah. You have to have both to have the deeper meaning. Quote, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine. Rabbi Shimon opened the discourse saying, in Salem also is set a tabernacle. Come and behold. Behold what? The flame of holy illumination. And darkened, and yet began to burn. And he took out from within an abyss a particular drop, which he joined with the flame. With them, he created the world. As we go deeper into who Melchizedek is and in the Holy Grail, he is called the King of Justice. He is called the King of Salem, which is the realm of Binah in the 10 Sephiroth. This means he's in the upper world. So the Holy Grail literally confirms Melchizedek resides in the upper world. When they're talking about the two Sephiroth, and in this particular case, one Sephiroth being Zerampin and Nukva, I won't go into the interpretation right now, but these two adorn one another, meaning that the lower world was crowned by the upper world, and they are inseparable as the two worlds are one. Now, as we receive the light of illumination, which in this particular case has a much deeper meaning as to what the bread and the wine are that give us the illumination, and this is part of the secret of the Holy Grail, is when you see such terms like this and you want to unlock the meaning of the bread and the wine, you go into the Holy Grail and it unlocks how the bread and the wine can be interpreted into one of the 10 Sephiroth to open the keys to the door of illumination. Now, it confirms, the Holy Grail confirms that Melchizedek was priest of the Most High El, who served the world that corresponds to another world. And this priest, this Melchizedek, is in the upper world, and he desires to bless this world. I didn't need to see much more than that to confirm who Melchizedek is. So in tonight's explanation on some of the pieces of the puzzle that I have put together, and I'm by no means done with my puzzle search, because I still have further questions. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has us all connected. And as we connect and we grow in this sacred knowledge, guess what? We grow in light. As we grow in this sacred knowledge, our DNA broadcasts more light. And it is not constrained only to Earth. It is broadcast around the universe to do the work that it's set out to do. And that is to give the light of truth and the light of the Shekinah to everything that lives and breathes in the universe. So when I was studying some of the things on the Essene, I noticed that there are certain peculiar exercises that they practice. I'll be done here in a minute. What Hamid Bey teaches in his discourses, the breathing and the meditation exercises. And some of these exercises are very unique to the Essenes. As you read more about the Essenes, you begin to understand why they were the chosen order to prepare the way for the Christ child. Then I blipped onto something on the series that's called Edge of Wonder, and I heard David Wilcock say something that knocked me right out of my chair. And I'll conclude with this. He said that in the Great Pyramid, when it was in the height of its glory, and the capstone was on the Great Pyramid, and it was shining, that it was in position for only one event, and that was when Jesus Christ himself was inside that pyramid with the shining capstone, and something very phenomenal happened that only Jesus Christ could activate at that time within the Great Pyramid, according to the teachings that had been received by David Wilcox. So, we are very privileged to be part of the Coptic Order. We are very privileged to have the teachings that give us direct link, not just to the Great White Brotherhood, not just to the schools of the prophets, but to Melchizedek himself. And with that, I thank everybody for putting up with me, and I thank you for the opportunity to share this, and may the Almighty bless you all. Thank you.
Thanks, John. A couple of questions for you, and then we'll open it up for other questions as well. Melchizedek, you mentioned something about Jesus and the 12 disciples. Melchizedek, is it a being of 12 or is it just one?
There are 12 Melchizedeks, and the leader who had decided to come to our planet as to look like a human being and bring the high teachings was Macaventa. So that's the mystery Essene teacher's name. He's from a higher realm. He's Macaventa Melchizedek.
And is it fifth dimensional or higher?
That's a good question. I don't think I can answer that. Maybe the great one can. John Davis?
I think I'll pass on that one.
When you talk of the other world, not plural, other world, what is the other world?
In the Hebrew, it's Olam Haba. It's heaven.
Okay.
The other world is heaven.
On the other side of the veil, then.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, as I've said many times, Earth is not a home, it's a school. And nobody disagrees with that. The challenges we all go through in our lives to graduate from the Earth. And Nancy and I saw an old movie many, many years ago. Talked about a man who passed away in a car accident and went to heaven. When he got there, he had to go through his life review. And he had an attorney defending him, and there was another attorney to try and talk this person into having to go back to Earth. And it was a fascinating movie. And at the same time, in my heart of hearts, I kind of believe it. The tough things we got to go through, mastery of the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, the whole thing, they're all tests. And when we get through, we do go through a life review. And at that time, all of our experiences are reviewed by our teacher over there waiting for us. So what you said was very, very advanced. And I really appreciate what you shared with us, because it takes on another dimension of the White Brotherhood, which is linked with the Essenes, which is directly linked to the Coptic Fellowship. And Hamid Bey was representative of the Coptic order in Egypt. And at the same time, I don't think you'll ever find a greater writer than Hamid Bey. And I wish you could have known Hamid Bey like I did, because he was the greatest man I've ever met. Also, the humblest man I've ever met, which means we're all living our life for humility, love, and service. Duty, responsibility, and service.
Well, let me ask this. The Coptics are our heritage, our roots are from the Essenes. But there must have been other orders. I mean, is the Coptic order the only order? Are there, I think you said there's other sects that came out of the Essenes. Is that correct? I mean, other groups with the secret?
Well, I don't know that there were other groups that came out of the Essenes right now. I am probing that. Prior to the Essenes, we had the Great White Brotherhood, right. We had the School of the Prophets, and then we had any of the schools that were referred to by Elijah and Elisha, all the way back to where Melchizedek made his first appearance on this planet as a look-alike human, which was 1,900 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So did they make appearances prior to that? I don't know. But we know that he was one of the 12 Melchizedeks of the order of Melchizedek that decided to come to this planet. So obviously he had to have a body to operate in. Mm-hmm. And he actually walked the planet for about 97 years. And then he dematerialized. We're in a position where, as Coptics, we're open-minded enough, that we can understand that there are higher beings from higher realms walking our surface. Now, whether they're Melchizedeks or not is a very good question. But I don't know of any other order of the sacred orders that can make a direct link back to Melchizedek himself. So as Coptics, and as whatever schooling that Hamid Bey went through, when the masters in Egypt pulled him out and recognized, that he was gifted, whatever teachings they had, I'm quite sure, went back to the Essenes, which went back to the School of the Prophets, which went back to the White Brotherhood, back, all the way till when Melchizedek had come in human form, though he wasn't human. Mm-hmm. And when you read more about these Essenes, you can see why, Anna had the teachings and the ability, the Virgin Mary's mother, to live to be 600 years old, and
you said that she was a virgin herself?
That's a good question, because in 600 years had she been married, and I recall that Anna had been married, and I believe more than once in that 600 years. But what we are saying is that her daughter Mary, who became the Virgin Mary, did not have a human father.
Yeah.
That's why Anna came to the temple pregnant. So Mary, by the way, was the only woman of her time that was allowed into the high Essene community. Other than that, they were all male. She was the one exception.
Mm-hmm. One of the secrets that the Coptics came to reveal is that Jesus had 12 disciples, and Mary Magdalene had 12 female disciples, and that Jesus married Mary Magdalene. How many of you know that?
Yeah,
Knew that?
I know
Yeah.
that.
Do they all know that? And at the same time, I think we're some of the few that do and believe it because it's true. So the male and female was equal in Jesus' eyes. Male and female way back then, which shows his great wisdom. So we, the modern day Catholics, namely us, we're here that when people come to the organization, we share these things with them. Then they can use these techniques and procedures through diet, meditation, exercise, humility, love, and service, as it was taught many, many centuries ago with the right brotherhood. And so, boy, you did a great job tonight, John, explaining.
Thank you. You know, I do see I do see it happening, that the growth of the Coptic Center very soon is just going to explode into large numbers. People want to know what the original teachings are, you know, and why they have been secreted. You know, even going back to the libraries of Alexandria, by doing some of my studies with Edgar Casey's references, it was the Muslims who had destroyed the libraries at Alexandria. And the ancient libraries at Alexandria had so much tremendous wisdom. But as you read more about the Essenes, you know, your Essene writers, they had incredible abilities. Not only could they appear in multiple places at the same time, they could go cloaked. They could appear as children. They could appear as old people. They could be invisible. And they moved around the world. And then when they came to certain caves, they had very high teachings. And they had a language that was only theirs. One of the books that the Essenes wrote was the Book of Revelation. It still has to be unlocked by an Essene. And so one of the keys to unlocking the Book of Revelation is deep within a cave, you know, from a writing or a tablet or a papyrus, you know, or a cuneiform script that is going to unlock the true codes, you know, that is in the Book of Revelation. Our time, you know, is almost there for this to be unlocked. You know, why don't the other church movements have the teachings of the Essenes in their Sunday morning liturgy and their Sunday morning preaching? Why don't they have it? Because the organization has been so secret. And once you have the original teachings that have been handed down through Melchizedek, through these orders, here we come with the 12. 12 Melchizedeks, 12 apostles, 12 disciples, 12 women disciples, 12 male disciples. Okay, 12, 12, 12. There's a reason for this. And it's been sufficient. But at the same time, as the teachings are so in-depth to unlock the human being's potential, it seems like they have to be careful of where that teaching is given. So a lot of their writings have been coded, you know, just like in the Holy Grail. You're not going to understand Torah until it's unlocked by the oral Torah, you know, which is the Holy Grail. And to have found something within the Holy Grail itself, by the way, which was exactly what was given to Moses on Mount Sinai. To find something in there about Melchizedek, that's huge. That's huge in my eyes. And to confirm that he is a teacher from the upper world, that's also huge. So Jesus, the Christ, is a teacher from the higher world, and he's patterned after the order of Melchizedek, so we have a connection. But is he a Melchizedek, or is he patterned after the order of Melchizedek? I see that he's from the beginning. I see him, you know, as the Christ, as the Son of God. And I see that everything that they had done, including Melchizedek, was to prepare the way for the Christ. And then what you saw here tonight was that Jesus the Christ is their priest.
One of the secrets that we hold, and when way back when I was ordained as a Catholic minister and I had a couple of centers, the one thing we had to do that we had to keep a secret, except at Easter time, is Jesus did not die on the cross. And that is something that I've already heard from the Catholic Fellowship, but Hamid Bey and my teacher, Master Salem, said we had to reveal that information. And when Hamid Bey said something, it was the truth, and we as ministers had to share it every Easter. So it's a secret that we share, and eventually the right people come to the Catholics, and then they receive this information about Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and so forth. We hold these secrets, which we had to.
Well, the Western world is so Christianized that you're not going to hear it from, the pulpits of the Catholic and Protestant churches. But I would imagine other truth seekers, like in the yogis and the Buddhic realms, Buddhic monasteries and stuff. I'm sure they know that. We just haven't heard them talk about it.
John, I have a question for you. It sounds like what you're pointing to is that Jesus was the one that they prepared the way for, but how do Buddha and Mohammed fit into that? I'm just wondering.
They're just another faith. They may have.
Jesus is a reincarnation of Melchizedek, according to Edgar Casey.
Very good.
Oh,
That makes sense.
Oh, okay, yes. Jesus is a reincarnation of Adam, of Moses, of Melchizedek. I don't remember. There may be 12. I don't remember. I've read the book, but I do remember that Melchizedek was one of Jesus's prior incarnations.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Wow.
So you want to look into that if you're looking into Melchizedek information in the Casey materials.
so were Buddha and Muhammad just teachers? Because whole religions were based on what they taught too. Mm-hmm. Or did they have some of that lineage?
I don't know.
I don't think they had that lineage. We're talking about these sacred orders again, how they go in succession. So you have the order of Melchizedek, priest after the order of Melchizedek. Then you have the school of the prophets, the White Brotherhood, the Essenes. I don't see Buddha anywhere in that lineup. He could be from another order, that type of thing. Maybe from Atlantis, maybe from Lemuria, maybe from Mu, an order under a different name, under a different teacher.
A friend of mine gave me a book, Jesus and Buddha Were Friends. I haven't read it yet. Mm-hmm. Based on what we talked about here, I think I would read it. Because it should be quite interesting, but I've just been so busy, I haven't had a chance to read it.
Well, God appeared to different groups in different forms to speak to them in what would be of importance to that group. So Buddha, it was probably a different appearance, not Christ. He's not the Christ. He's a different, to speak to the people of his time and his place.
Well, I'm sure the author of this book had some very, very powerful secrets he had to reveal in the book. I think I'm going to start reading.
It's amazing, really, how much Edgar Casey reveals. And, I used to have more of the books from Edgar Casey, but I'm going to start focusing. I did meet John Van Alken down at our Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he's a fascinating man to me.
He's a great man.
Fascinating. But just to have a few more books like I used to have on the Essenes or on Edgar Casey at that point, I wasn't as focused on the Essenes as I am now. But for me, I haven't been able to shake them. And, you know, when you throw a backpack on your shoulder and you head for Southern California with no money, I was missing the wooden bowl of a monk. You know, all I had to do was beg, you know, but at least I was off donuts and coffee for 2 weeks, which is miraculous. I gave up donuts for my pilgrimage. And I made it to Southern California, where I heard all of these, I can't relate all of these divine stories from an Essene rabbi, and then to go study with the Hasid in San Diego with the Lubavitcher Rebbes and go through some of that. It's profound, you know. So there are some very, very sacred teachings that have been passed down through some of these orders. And I do like a lot of what Buddha teaches. And I did hear a connection that I'm trying to confirm, and that is a buddy of mine had a Ukrainian grandfather that had a set of the Zohar over there on the other side of the world. And he said from his teachings that there was a time where the Zohar, the Holy Grail, was cut into 4 portions. And one went to the north, one went to the east, one went to the west, one went to the south. And the teaching was, until humanity can learn to love and forgive each other, those 4 divisions of the Holy Grail would not come together in one location. And he went on to describe that portion of the Zohar, of the Holy Grail, that ended up in China and the Far East, was the one that had to teach about the chakras and the different levels and meditation techniques and these type of things. So in Edgar Casey's descriptions of some of Jesus's travels, he did go to the Far East. Yeah, he did pick up some of those teachings and the meditative techniques and everything else. The full reasoning why, I don't know, but I had read in Edgar Casey's book that he did learn to cast out demons and heal in the Far East.
Well, this is
John, this is Ginger. I'm curious. I'm having a curiosity about the relationship of 12 mathematics. You know, because in sacred astrology, it's the 12 houses, and that 12 has 30 degrees, and that's 360 degrees, which is the sacred circle. So have you run into any of the mathematics of and sacred geometry builds upon the solids? So have you seen any connection there in some of this work?
Yes, there is a link.
I think she's asking John.
Oh, which John you're talking about?
Well, both Johns. Yeah, both Johns can answer that.
You have your pure sacred geometry in the construct of the Great Pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And as David Wilcox had said, the Great Pyramid in its glory with the shining capstone was built for one purpose. When Jesus Christ was inside that pyramid, going through a rite of passage or doing what he needed to do, which projected around the entire universe. So that connection right there is sacred geometry at work.
Jesus was supposedly baptized in the Great Pyramid.
Yes. Jesus and John the Baptist went to the Great Pyramid at the age of 12
For their bar mitzvah or whatever the Jewish.
for the initiation in the Great Pyramid. At that point, they said they were supposed to go and travel around the world. But first they had to go through the training programs, the chakras of the Nile and all the tests of the Nile and all that. And after they went to the school in Egypt, they went and left and traveled between the age of 12 and when Jesus was baptized at the age, I think it was 27. They had, in my opinion, I look at it as they became universalists, is my interpretation of it. They experienced a lot of different religions. So there's a lot of things we teach in the Coptic order through our classes, through our workshops, and share these secrets, because that's what we're here to do. if people will reach the Coptic Fellowship and go through the training program with the World Service Order and teacher training and so forth, they receive all those secrets. And this is what we are here to do. And John, you certainly have a lot of them. Thank you for sharing that.
Again, I wanted to correct Michael Delano too. I've got to eat humble pie, Michael. I didn't go through the self-mastery courses. I couldn't give up the donuts for 3 weeks. I didn't make it.
Well, it's been a beautiful evening, everybody. Been wonderful.
Sure has been. Looking forward to replay too on the YouTube channel for the Coptic
Thank you,
Fellowship.
John.
If you'd like to hear the words of wisdom of John.
Thank you, John, for the great
Conversation too. So